Have you ever caught yourself making a little sound when you stand up from your favorite chair, or found yourself talking to your reflection in the mirror like an old friend? If you're nodding along, you're definitely not alone. Aging brings with it a collection of quirks, habits, and yes, sometimes embarrassing little moments that nobody really prepares us for. We talk about the wisdom that comes with age, the freedom of retirement, and the joy of grandchildren. But what about those peculiar little changes that sneak up on us when we're not looking? Today, we're diving into the honest, unfiltered truth about some of the more unusual things that happen as we age. These aren't the dramatic health concerns your doctor warns you about, but rather the small, everyday changes that might leave you wondering, is this normal, or is it just me? Spoiler alert, it's usually completely normal, and you're definitely not alone in experiencing them. We're going to explore 20 of these unspoken realities of aging. From the sounds our bodies start making without permission, to the strange new attachments we develop to seemingly random objects. Some of these might make you chuckle in recognition. Others might offer you some relief, knowing that what you're experiencing is perfectly natural. By the end of our conversation, you'll realize that these little quirks aren't flaws to be embarrassed about. They're simply part of the rich, complex experience of living a full life. Let's start with something almost everyone can relate to: those involuntary sound effects that seem to accompany our every movement. You know what I'm talking about? That little grunt when you get up from the couch, the sigh when you bend down to pick something up, or that sound that escapes when you're settling into bed. These aren't conscious choices we're making. They just seem to happen automatically, like our bodies have developed their own soundtrack. The reason behind this is actually quite fascinating. As we age, our joints naturally become a bit stiffer, and our muscles lose some of their elasticity. When we move, especially from a resting position, our bodies need a little extra effort to get going. That grunt or sigh, it's actually our diaphragm helping to stabilize our core and give us the extra boost we need. It's like our internal system saying, "Okay, here we go." Think of it as your personal theme music. And honestly, sometimes you really are the star of your own show. The solution isn't to fight these sounds, because they're actually serving a purpose. Instead, gentle, daily stretching and staying as active as your body allows can help keep those joints moving more smoothly. And if the sounds persist, well, consider them part of your unique charm. Speaking of sounds, let's talk about another phenomenon that becomes increasingly common with age: talking to yourself out loud. Now, this isn't the concerning kind of self-talk that might worry family members. This is the practical, everyday commentary that helps us navigate our daily routines. Now, where did I put those glasses? Don't forget to call Susan. The weather looks nice today. Maybe I'll sit on the porch. This habit actually serves several important functions. As we age, our working memory, the mental workspace where we temporarily hold and process information, can become less reliable. Speaking our thoughts out loud provides our brains with verbal cues that help us remember and process information more effectively. It's like giving your brain a helpful assistant. There's also something wonderfully liberating about reaching an age where you don't worry as much about what others think. You've earned the right to have conversations with yourself, if that's what helps you get through your day. And let's be honest, sometimes you really are the best conversationalist you know. You never interrupt yourself, you always find your own jokes funny, and you're genuinely interested in what you have to say. Now, let's move into the realm of collecting and saving. Specifically, the mysterious accumulation of plastic bags, containers, and various useful items. If you've ever opened a cabinet only to have a cascade of plastic grocery bags tumble out, or if you have a collection of butter containers that you're convinced will come in handy someday, you're experiencing a very common aging phenomenon. This tendency to save things just in case stems from several sources. For many seniors, it's partly generational. Growing up during times when resources were scarce or expensive taught valuable lessons about not wasting anything that might be useful later. There's also a psychological comfort in having supplies on hand, a sense of security that comes from being prepared for various scenarios. The challenge is finding the balance between reasonable preparedness and overwhelming accumulation. Those plastic bags really might come in handy for small trash cans or protecting items, but perhaps not all 50 of them. The key is setting reasonable limits. Keep a manageable number of useful items and periodically review what you actually use versus what just takes up space. This connects to another common pattern: the tendency to over-explain stories and provide extensive background context for seemingly simple anecdotes. You start telling someone about your trip to the grocery store and somehow end up explaining your entire relationship with the store manager, the history of the shopping center, and how different things were when you first moved to the neighborhood 30 years ago. This isn't just chattiness, it's actually how memory works as we age. Our brains store information in interconnected networks, and when we access one memory, it often triggers associated memories. That grocery store visit connects to dozens of other experiences and observations, and they all seem relevant to the story. It's like opening a filing cabinet where everything is connected to everything else. While this can be charming and provide rich context, it's worth being mindful of your audience and the situation. Sometimes the grocery store story really is just about the grocery store, and your listeners might appreciate the shorter version. As we continue exploring these fascinating aspects of aging, remember that each of these quirks represents adaptation, wisdom, and the accumulation of life experience. They're not flaws to be corrected, but rather interesting developments in the ongoing story of who you are. Let's continue our honest conversation about the quirks that come with aging, because we're just getting started. If you've ever walked into a room with great purpose, only to stand there wondering what on earth you came in for, you've experienced one of the most universal aspects of getting older. This isn't early dementia or cause for panic. It's simply what happens when our brains are juggling multiple thoughts and our short-term memory decides to take a brief vacation. The doorway effect, as researchers call it, happens because our brains use environmental changes as cues to file away information. When you walk through a doorway, your mind essentially closes the mental file of what you were doing in the previous room and opens a new one. Sometimes, in that transition, the original thought gets temporarily misplaced. It's like your brain is being overly helpful, trying to keep things organized, but accidentally putting the information in a file you can't immediately access. The good news is there are simple strategies to combat this. Try saying your purpose out loud as you walk. I'm going to the kitchen to get my reading glasses. Yes, this might make you look like you're talking to yourself, but we've already established that's perfectly normal and actually quite helpful. Another trick is to retrace your steps, mentally or physically. Often, returning to where you started will help retrieve that lost thought. This connects beautifully to another common development: having what I like to call signature complaints. You know what these are? Oh, my back is acting up again. These knees just aren't what they used to be. I didn't sleep well last night. These become regular conversation openers, like a personal weather report that you share with anyone who will listen. Now, before you feel self-conscious about this, understand that it serves several important purposes. First, chronic discomfort is real, and talking about it is one way our minds process and cope with ongoing challenges. Second, these complaints often serve as social bonding tools. When you mention your creaky knees to a friend, you're likely to hear, "Oh, mine too," and suddenly you're connected through shared experience. There's also something validating about having your discomfort acknowledged. After decades of pushing through various aches and pains, there's comfort in having someone understand that yes, your body is working differently now, and that's okay to acknowledge. The key is balance. Sharing your experiences without letting them dominate every conversation or define your entire identity. Speaking of things our bodies do differently, let's talk about taste. Have you noticed that food doesn't seem to have as much flavor as it used to? You might find yourself reaching for the salt shaker more often, or wondering if restaurants have changed their recipes. The truth is, your taste buds are changing, and this is completely normal. As we age, we naturally lose taste buds. Starting around age 60, we lose about 1% of our taste buds each year. The ones that remain become less sensitive, particularly to salt and bitter tastes. This is why that perfectly seasoned meal from your favorite restaurant might taste a bit bland now, and why you might find yourself adding more salt than you ever did before. The challenge is that while your taste buds are calling for more salt, your doctor is probably suggesting you use less for heart health and blood pressure management. The solution isn't to ignore your doctor's advice, but to get creative with flavor. Herbs and spices can wake up your taste buds in ways that salt alone cannot. Garlic, onion powder, oregano, basil, cumin, and paprika can transform a bland meal into something delicious, without the health risks that come with excess sodium. Experiment with citrus too. A squeeze of lemon or lime can brighten flavors in remarkable ways. And don't forget about texture. Sometimes, what we interpret as blandness is actually a craving for more interesting textures in our food. Now, let's address something that might seem trivial, but causes surprising amounts of stress. The restaurant seating selection process. If you've ever watched yourself or a loved one take what feels like an eternity to choose a seat in a restaurant, seemingly considering every available option before finally settling, you're witnessing a very strategic decision-making process. This isn't indecision. It's the result of accumulated wisdom about what makes for a comfortable dining experience. You're considering the lighting. Can you actually read the menu? The proximity to the bathroom, practical considerations become increasingly important. The noise level, can you have a conversation without shouting? The temperature, are you sitting under an air conditioning vent? And a view, is there something pleasant to look at, or are you facing a wall? Younger diners might just plop down anywhere, but experience has taught you that where you sit can make or break your meal. You've learned that the booth in the corner might look cozy, but could be too dark to see your food properly. You know that sitting near the kitchen might mean more noise and traffic. This careful seat selection is actually a form of self-advocacy. You're remaking choices that will maximize your comfort and enjoyment. The same strategic thinking applies to another common behavior: the constant rearranging of furniture. Even if that couch has been in the same spot for 15 years, suddenly there might be a better configuration. The coffee table might work better angled differently, or perhaps the reading chair would get better light if moved 3 feet to the left. This urge to rearrange often stems from a desire to optimize comfort and functionality, but it also represents something deeper. In a life stage where many things feel less predictable or controllable, health issues, fixed incomes, changes in family dynamics, Rearranging furniture is a way to exert control over your immediate environment. It's a way of saying, I can still improve things. I can still make changes that matter. Sometimes these rearrangement projects also serve as gentle exercise and mental stimulation. Planning a new furniture arrangement engages spatial reasoning skills, and the physical act of moving things safely and within reason provides activity. There is also something satisfying about creating a fresh perspective in familiar spaces. It can make your home feel renewed without the expense of redecorating. As we explore these behaviors, remember that each one represents adaptation and wisdom gained through experience. What might look like quirks from the outside are often practical solutions to the realities of aging bodies and minds. Let's venture into some territory that might feel a bit more personal. The relationship many seniors develop with their medicine cabinets and the stories they love to tell. If you've ever opened someone's medicine cabinet only to find bottles dating back several years, or if you've caught yourself telling the same cherished story for the third time this month, you're experiencing some very common aspects of aging that deserve understanding rather than judgment. The medicine cabinet accumulation is something that happens gradually and often without conscious awareness. You finish a course of antibiotics, but keep the leftover pills just in case. That bottle of vitamins expires, but throwing it away feels wasteful, especially when there are still dozens of capsules inside. Over time, these well-intentioned decisions create what looks like a small pharmacy in your bathroom. This behavior stems from several very logical concerns. There's the practical worry about medication costs. If you paid good money for those supplements, throwing them away can feel financially irresponsible. There's also the security blanket aspect. Having medications on hand can provide peace of mind, especially if you live alone or have concerns about accessing healthcare quickly. For many seniors, particularly those who lived through times of scarcity, the idea of throwing away anything potentially useful goes against deeply ingrained values of thriftiness and preparedness. The important thing to understand is when this stockpiling becomes problematic versus when it's simply cautious planning. Expired medications can lose their effectiveness or, in some cases, become harmful. A good rule of thumb is to review your medicine cabinet every 6 months, checking expiration dates and honestly assessing what you actually use. Keep a small emergency supply of basic, over-the-counter medications, if it makes you feel more secure, but don't let expired prescriptions pile up indefinitely. Now, let's talk about something that brings joy to many seniors, but sometimes frustrates their listeners: the retelling of favorite stories from the best days. These are the stories about your first job, your wedding day, that amazing vacation from 20 years ago, or the time something wonderfully unexpected happened. You love these stories, they bring you happiness to tell, but you're dimly aware that you might have shared them recently. This isn't a memory problem. It's actually how memory works as we age. Recent memories, the everyday mundane details of last Tuesday, fade relatively quickly. But those emotionally significant memories, the ones tied to joy, accomplishment, or meaningful experiences, remain vivid and accessible. Your brain has essentially highlighted these memories as important, and keeps them in an easy-to-access file. There's also tremendous comfort in revisiting these positive memories. In a world that often feels increasingly unfamiliar or challenging, these stories represent times when you felt capable, happy, and engaged with life. Telling them again isn't just sharing information. It's a way of reinforcing your identity and reminding yourself of your resilience and joy. The key is being mindful of your audience and the context. Your grandchildren might love hearing about how you met their grandfather for the 4th time. But your neighbor might prefer to hear a condensed version. It's not about stopping yourself from sharing these important memories, but rather reading the room and perhaps asking, "Have I told you about the time when ... before launching into the full story?" Speaking of social changes, let's address something that might make younger family members blush. The tendency to discuss bodily functions with the casual directness usually reserved for weather reports. Digestive issues, bathroom frequency, aches and pains, and other physical realities become surprisingly common topics of conversation. This shift in conversational boundaries happens for several reasons. First, as we age, physical comfort becomes increasingly important and noticeable. When you're dealing with chronic discomfort or unpredictable digestive issues, these concerns occupy mental space and naturally become part of your daily experience worth discussing. Second, there's a certain liberation that comes with age. After decades of polite social conventions, many seniors embrace a more direct communication style. There's also a practical aspect to these conversations. Discussing health concerns with peers can provide valuable information and emotional support. Your friend's experience with a particular digestive issue might offer insights your doctor hasn't mentioned. These conversations represent a form of informal health networking that can be genuinely helpful. The challenge is gauging your audience and the appropriateness of the setting. Your longtime friends who are dealing with similar issues might welcome these discussions. But your teenage grandson probably doesn't need detailed updates about your latest medical appointments during dinner. Let's shift to something that might be hanging in your closet right now. Those special clothes that you're keeping for good, that never seem to find the right occasion. That beautiful dress you bought for your daughter's wedding 5 years ago. The sharp blazer that makes you feel confident and professional, or the elegant outfit that's been waiting for just the right event. They hang in your closet like promises of future celebrations that somehow never materialize. This attachment to special clothing represents several complex emotions. There's the practical concern about having something appropriate for formal occasions. You want to be prepared for weddings, anniversary parties, or other celebrations, but there's also something deeper happening. These clothes often represent a version of yourself that you want to preserve or return to. They're connected to memories of feeling attractive, confident, or special. The reluctance to wear these clothes comes from a desire to preserve them, but also from a fear that the occasion might not live up to the specialness of the outfit. What if the event isn't as formal as you expected? What if something happens to stain or damage the clothing? Better to save it for something truly worthy. The irony, of course, is that by saving these clothes for perfect occasions, we often deny ourselves the joy and confidence they could provide in everyday moments. There's something to be said for wearing the good china and the special dress more often. After all, you've earned the right to feel special on ordinary days too. Consider this. What makes an occasion worthy of your beautiful clothes? Sometimes it's not the event itself, but the decision to make any day special by choosing to wear something that makes you feel good. Your regular lunch with friends might be the perfect time for that lovely blouse you've been saving. Another evening ritual that many seniors can relate to. Falling asleep during television shows, even ones you genuinely enjoy. You settle in to watch your favorite program, and somehow you wake up an hour later to find the credits rolling. This isn't laziness or boredom. It's your body's natural sleep patterns asserting themselves. As we age, our circadian rhythms shift, often making us naturally sleepier earlier in the evening. This biological change, combined with the comfort of your favorite chair and the relaxing routine of evening television, creates the perfect conditions for unplanned naps. Your body is essentially saying, "This seems like a good time to rest." regardless of what your brain had planned for the evening. Rather than fighting this natural tendency, consider working with it. If you find yourself consistently drowsy during evening shows, perhaps that's your body's way of telling you it's ready for sleep. You could try watching earlier in the day, or simply accept that sometimes a comfortable nap in front of the television is exactly what you need. As we reach the final part of our honest conversation about aging, let's explore some behaviors that might seem small, but actually reveal profound wisdom about preparation, adaptation, and maintaining perspective in a rapidly changing world. These last few points touch on how seniors navigate modern life, while staying true to the practical lessons they've learned over decades of experience. Have you ever noticed that tissues have become a constant companion? They're in your pocket, your purse, the glove compartment of your car, and probably stashed in at least 3 different rooms of your house. This isn't paranoia or excessive worry. It's the result of learning that being prepared for life's small inconveniences can make a big difference in your daily comfort. As we age, our bodies become more sensitive to environmental changes. Seasonal allergies might become more pronounced. Eyes might water more easily in wind or bright light, and unexpected sneezes seem to happen at the most inconvenient moments. After years of being caught unprepared, trying to dab at watery eyes with your sleeve, or dealing with a runny nose without proper supplies, you've learned that having tissues readily available is simply good planning. There's also something comforting about this small act of self-care. Keeping tissues handy is a way of taking care of yourself proactively rather than reactively. It's a small but tangible way of saying, I'm going to be prepared for whatever minor challenges the day brings. This mindset of gentle preparedness extends beyond tissues to many aspects of senior life. Keeping a sweater in the car for unexpected temperature changes, having reading glasses in multiple locations, or maintaining small emergency supplies. This practical wisdom also shows up in another common behavior: checking the mail multiple times throughout the day. Even when you know intellectually that the mail comes only once daily and is likely to contain mostly advertisements and bills. There's something compelling about that walk to the mailbox, or those trips down to the lobby mail area. The mail check serves multiple purposes beyond simply collecting correspondence. For many seniors, especially those who live alone, it's a structured reason to move around and get a bit of fresh air. It's a small daily ritual that breaks up the day and provides a sense of anticipation. Maybe today there will be something interesting, unexpected, or personally meaningful waiting. There's also the social aspect to consider. That walk to the mailbox might result in a conversation with a neighbor, and checking mail in an apartment building lobby often provides opportunities for brief but meaningful social interactions. These small connections can be important sources of community and belonging, especially for those whose social circles have naturally contracted with age. The multiple daily checks aren't really about the mail itself. They're about creating structure, movement, and possibility in your day. Even if the mailbox yields only catalogs and bills, the ritual itself has served its purpose. Now, let's talk about something that can create tension between generations: the resistance to new technology and modern slang, when the cloud means data storage instead of weather, and streaming refers to entertainment instead of water flowing. It's understandable to feel like the world is speaking a different language. This isn't stubbornness or an inability to learn. It's a rational response to the overwhelming pace of technological change. Consider how much the world has transformed in the span of a senior's lifetime. People who are currently in their 70s and 80s have witnessed the introduction of television, computers, cell phones, the internet, social media, and countless other innovations. Each of these changes required learning new vocabulary, new skills, and new ways of thinking about everyday tasks. The resistance to constantly adopting new technology often comes from a place of wisdom rather than fear. Seniors have learned to evaluate whether new tools truly improve their lives or simply add complexity. They might choose not to learn every new app or gadget, not because they can't, but because they've developed good judgment about where to invest their learning energy. That said, staying connected with family and friends increasingly requires some technological adaptation. The key is approaching new technology gradually and purposefully, focusing on tools that genuinely enhance your life rather than feeling pressured to keep up with every innovation. This practical approach to evaluation extends to another behavior that might perplex younger family members: the tendency to save seemingly random household items just in case. That collection of buttons from old clothes, keys that no longer fit any locks you can remember, rubber bands, twist ties, and various small hardware items represents a lifetime of learning that you never know when something might come in handy. This saving instinct comes from experience with the frustration of throwing something away only to need it shortly afterward. It's also rooted in an era when repairing rather than replacing was the norm. That button might be perfect for fixing a favorite sweater someday. Those mystery keys might suddenly reveal their purpose when you're cleaning out an old desk drawer. The rubber bands will definitely be useful for organizing something, even if you're not sure what yet. The challenge is finding the balance between reasonable preparedness and overwhelming accumulation. The wisdom lies in keeping a small, organized collection of potentially useful items while periodically evaluating what you actually use versus what just takes up space. Finally, let's address something that every senior has probably done and every younger person has probably heard: comparing current prices to back in my day costs. Can you believe they want $4 for a cup of coffee? I remember when coffee cost $1. This isn't just nostalgia talking. It's an attempt to process and make sense of how dramatically the world has changed. These price comparisons serve as a way to measure the scope of change you've witnessed in your lifetime. When you mention that your first car cost less than most people now spend on a vacation, you're not just complaining about inflation. You're sharing perspective on how much the world has transformed. These comparisons help younger people understand the magnitude of change you've experienced and provide context for your values and priorities. There's also something validating about acknowledging these changes out loud. It confirms that your memories are real and that the transformation you've witnessed is genuinely dramatic. In a world that often seems to move too quickly, these comparisons are a way of saying, I remember when things were different, and that experience has value. As we conclude this exploration of aging's unspoken realities, remember that each of these behaviors represents adaptation, wisdom, and resilience. The little sounds you make when getting up aren't signs of weakness. They're your body efficiently managing movement. The stories you love to retell aren't memory problems. They're treasured experiences worth sharing. The tissues in your pocket and the careful seat selection at restaurants aren't quirks. They're the result of learning how to take better care of yourself. These behaviors might seem peculiar to younger observers, but they represent something beautiful: the accumulation of life experience and the ongoing process of adapting to change while maintaining dignity and comfort. They're not flaws to be corrected, but rather interesting chapters in the continuing story of who you are. Aging comes with its challenges, certainly, but it also comes with permissions. The permission to be more direct in conversation, to prioritize your comfort, to save things that might be useful, and to share the stories that have shaped you. These aren't signs that you're becoming difficult or set in your ways. They're signs that you've learned what matters and what works for you. Which of these resonated most strongly with you? Have you noticed these patterns in yourself or your loved ones? Remember, recognizing these behaviors isn't about changing them. It's about understanding them and perhaps even appreciating the wisdom they represent. After all, every one of these quirks tells a story about adaptation, experience, and the beautiful complexity of a life fully lived.